everyone. I'm Marshall Atkinson, and welcome to our webinar today, which is really all about how Printavo syncs with Production Tracker. And so I'm with Atkinson Consulting, and I'm also helping Udit and the guys bring the Production Tracker app to the market. So that's kind of my role here. And with us today is, of course, Udit Potter with Production Tracker. How you doing today, Udit?
I'm good, Marshall. Thank you so much.
And also Bruce Ackerman with Printavo.
Hey, everybody.
And of course, Ali Banholzer with Warrior Spirit Warehouse. How you doing, Ali?
I am great, thanks.
All right. And so this is going to be our panel today. And so most of this is just going to be kind of a casual discussion. And we're going to be getting into how Printavo syncs with Production Tracker. And then really it's about why and how you should be doing that. So before we get into that, I just want to briefly touch base on the reasons why you need to be measuring things in your business. And so there's a couple acronyms I'm going to throw at you. You probably have heard them before. The first one is KPI, which stands for Key Performance Indicator. So the reason why KPIs are really needed is because these are the things that really matter to us. And they don't have to be production related, although most of them can be. It could be also sales related. It could be the amount of errors that we're looking at or how much money we're spending on that. It could be how many screens we're doing a day. It could be how fast we're printing or how fast we're setting up or what is our downtime in production. It could be really anything that we want to track. It could be how many times a month you're touching your equipment and doing some preventative maintenance on it. You know, it's just the things that we want to be looking at that matter to you as a business owner. That is what a KPI is. So if you were to Google that or look it up, there's tons of articles on it, but more the thinking I want you to get at is what is important to you. That's what really matters. It's not what's important to somebody else. It's what is important to you. And this could be about your time. It could be about the money you're spending. It could be about things that just aren't working right. You're counting or you're looking at stuff or you're measuring somehow. So that's what's really important here. And there's a really super famous guy who did a lot of process stuff. His name was Peter Drucker. And you could Google him if you want. But one of the things that he famously said was that you can't manage what you don't measure, which is why we're interested in this stuff. Also, when we think about getting better in our shops, which is something that we're always trying to do, there's a whole philosophy on this called Lean or Lean Six Sigma. And Allie's like, she's crazy into that. I'm sure she'll talk about that here in a minute. But one of the acronyms that I really like for that is called DMAIC. And I know Allie's not going to use that term. We were just talking about it, but DMAIC stands for define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And so when we're looking at our businesses, if we really start looking at our processes and how we're actually do things, if we look at it from that perspective of DMAIC, measuring, analyzing, improving, that the middle chunk of that sandwich is what Production Tracker is all about, right? And of course, your processes and how you do stuff, that's your definition of that. And, and that's more how Printavo comes into play here. So you're defining where your orders are and all that, right? So before we get into the meat of stuff, I think the thing that we really need to focus on here is what Production Tracker is all about. And so I kind of want to throw the presentation over to Udit, and he's going to talk about what Production Tracker is all about and how you can get involved and what we're doing with that. So Udit, why don't you just kind of share the 30,000 foot view of what you guys are building?
Thank you so much, Marshall. Thank you so much for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Udit, one of the co-founders of Production Tracker. So what we're doing with Production Tracker is we're enabling shops to collect data regarding their production, right, for various processes such as heat press, screen printing, embroidery, screen room. So it's a simple application that runs on any device, right? It could run on Android device, an iPhone or a tablet, an iPad or an Amazon Fire tablet as well. And the tracker allows operators to enter information about their setup times, their production times, downtime, problems, etc. Right, on simple mobile apps. So whatever Marshall was talking about in terms of KPIs, Production Tracker helps shops collect those metrics that can allow shops to measure those KPIs and then track them and then improve on them. The idea is to help decoration shops track all this data, and the integrations that we've done with Printavo helps in seamlessly loading jobs and orders from Printavo to Production Tracker, right? So the idea is that you don't have to manually enter any jobs in Production Tracker because our integration just pulls that data from Printavo and loads it on the application for tracking. So you're tracking production data of orders in Printavo on the Production Tracker app seamlessly by just clicking a few buttons and then entering some information, right? As in when things happen on the shop floor. The data then helps owners and managers understand the efficiencies, the KPIs, and then take actions to improve the metrics that Marshall just spoke about, right? So these metrics are production metrics, the downtime of a machine, the misprints or the costs of misprints, whether we're pricing the orders right or not, depending upon how much time we're spending, and all these metrics can come together and Production Tracker gets helps shop visualize these metrics. So that's what we're trying to do. Thanks to Bruce and the team at Printavo for helping us with all the integrations that we've been able to do with Printavo and pulling the job. And I'm sure Ali will be talking a lot about how she's been using both the products together to sort of create an experience in the shop. Over to you, Marshall.
That's great. Thanks, Udit. So maybe there's some folks here on the webinar that really haven't heard of Printavo before. Maybe there are, but I just want to give Bruce an opportunity to talk about Printavo and what you guys are all about and how Printavo works as a system. So I know you instantly know the answer to this because that's what you do all day. So Bruce, tell us about Printavo.
Yeah, thanks. So Printavo helps so many shops in the States and abroad be able to manage their workflow and keep track of their orders. So quote, the very beginning out to shipping out a job, we try to help keep track of all the different steps from quoting, approvals, paid, scheduling now, to being able to track the production process and reporting out to QuickBooks. We've got our team, we're actually in the Chicago office right now. We've got about 30 team members that constantly helps, and a few thousand shops now that we help track their orders. So been a pretty exciting journey so far, and just being able to help people be able to build applications, really cool ones like this, Production Tracker. We're helping enable that ecosystem. What I've seen from this demo, it's pretty exciting, and excited for everybody else to see it too.
Yeah. So I think, Printavo does a really great job of helping shops organize their information and get everything working one way with a really good workflow. So congratulations on that. And Udit, I think we need to make Ali the presenter for her slides. When we were running up to this, I don't think we actually did that. So if there's a challenge with that, I have the slides. I can share it also. So thanks for the chat, Ali. So I think what's really great about Printavo is they allowed us to get the API to hook Production Tracker up to it, and they were very happy about it. There wasn't any issues or anything. And I know that we have a lot of our users are using Printavo, just like Ali is, to help visualize their key data to make better sense of things. So Ali, are we hooked up with you yet, or do I need to share?
I I can share.
Yes.
Okay.
All panelists, I mean, I think that's the access given. Yeah.
Yep. All
Great.
right.
So, Allie, why don't you, before you start with your slides, why don't you just talk about your shop? Where are you? What do you do? And how you're using both Printavo, because that's your main operating system, and also Production Tracker. So give us the 411.
All right. So Where Your Spirit Warehouse is in Southern Maryland. We're about 45 minutes southeast of Washington, D.C. We do predominantly direct to consumer sales. We do just a tiny bit of contract work, not much. We have 7 lines of production. So we do silkscreen, embroidery, HTV, wide format printing, laser engraving, transfers, direct to film, and sublimation. I think I hit them all.
Good job.
So we're busy, and some of our processes run at 100% capacity plus, and some of our processes run at 10% capacity, and we've got to figure out staffing and numbers and errors and how to fine tune all of that. And so I was really excited. I think it's been close to 9 months now that Marshall and Udit invited me to kind of start beta testing and help build out Production Tracker. And there's been a lot of changes and processes to really get it so it's measuring for my shop what we want, and I think for the majority of shops out there. And then it was maybe 3-4 months ago that we were able to get it connected to Printavo. So I've been using Printavo for 2-3 years now, and we were able to get it connected to Printavo, so we didn't have to enter the jobs in manually, and that was life-changing. I'd like to say, being able to just have that direct import. And what I have found with both of these is both of these companies, Printavo and Grid Production Tracker, are so responsive to their customers in making changes and helping shops run efficiently, and that it's the perfect marriage, because both of these systems are highly customizable. Both of them have automation, and so you can really niche these two products down to get what you need for your shop. And then when they connected, it was mind-boggling. So it's been a game changer for us in the shop. It's been great getting down. I am a data geek. I can nerd out on the data. I've beat Bruce up about data. I've beat Udit up about data. But I'll try to keep this high level.
Yeah. Well, I know that your size shop, Bruce, is probably typical for most of Printavo's clients, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like, it's no secret that we don't have all the detailed reports and pieces of data on the production side. And so I think that's why this partnership is pretty powerful, because if that is something that really matters to you, and Allie's done an amazing job that she'll show you of how she set it all up, then you can get some really detailed information to be able to pull up. And she's exactly the type, but if you're getting started, it may be a little bit tricky, but once you have that really good business model, and maybe it's like over a couple $100,000 a year in sales plus, is where this really kicks in to something that you care about.
Mm-hmm. So, Allie, why don't you share with us your slides, and then walk us through how you're syncing the Printavo experience with the Production Tracker experience to really improve what's going on in your business.
Sure, I would be happy to. So you talked about KPIs and measuring, the proof is in the numbers. The world's driven by numbers, whether it's production numbers or sales numbers or finances. And I think as we get started in business as entrepreneurs, we get so busy working in the business that we forget we need to work on our businesses. And we think, okay, we got to do production tracking. We've got to know so that we can schedule and do things that way. And we start doing it maybe with paper or Excel spreadsheets or things along those lines. And pretty soon we're getting so busy that not every operator's tracking, or they're not tracking accurately because it becomes cumbersome. And then even if they are tracking accurately, those production logs get put on, my experience was they'd get put on my desk. And then, you know, maybe 2 months later, I'm like, oh, I really should look at these. And I'm going back 2 months and it's a big chore now. Instead of something simple that I can stay on top of, I have to do a bunch of data entry if I want to have charts and grids. There's no quick look at it. And it becomes such a chore that we just start running our businesses on what we think is our instinct and our gut. And I can tell you, after jumping into Production Tracker and actually looking at some of our numbers, my gut was not always very accurate. So,
Yeah, and I know from, you know, long running really big shops, I did everything with paper production logs. And then I would take all of the presses and embroidery machines and update my spreadsheets on Mondays for the past week, and then have to update my pivot tables and then print my graphs. It was such a pain in the ass. So when Udit approached me with this, I'm like, yes, it's so needed in this industry. So I'm so thrilled how you're using it, and I can't wait for you to share your information here.
yeah. And, you know, you mentioned that I am big into Lean Six Sigma, which I am. So, and you shared your acronym. My acronym that I love is downtime. It's the 8 deadly wastes in any business. And it is, I've got them on the slide, but defects, overproduction, waiting, non-utilized talent, transportation excess, inventory excess, motion excess, and excess processing. And Production Tracker can be set up to look at and analyze any of these wastes. So you can set it up and do the general tracking and start identifying, oh, we have lots of defects, and you see them at a glance, or the overproduction. You know, in Lean Six Sigma, there's a methodology that you only want to do those things in production that are value added. And the definition of value added is anything your customer will pay for. So if your customer is not willing to pay for it, you shouldn't be doing it. It's a waste. And this production tracker actually really helps you get at that. So I did want to share.
And I also, to kind of throw there, you know, that really comes from the Toyota production system, right? That acronym, doesn't it come from that?
Yeah. So what happened is, so there's 2 methodologies. There's Lean and there's Six Sigma. And Lean came about in the 1930s with Toyota manufacturing, and it was the value added and not having any of these wastes and being very streamlined. And then Six Sigma came about. It's very data driven, and it is looking at lower control limits and upper control limits and trends, and being data driven. And so Lean, you usually do kind of what's called a Kaizen event. It's usually a 5-day event where you come together as a team to tackle a problem. And Six Sigma is usually a longer study, gathering data. It's usually about a 6-month process of gathering data, creating variable experiments to be able to tackle problems and things that way. In the 80s, Motorola came together and put the 2 methodologies together into what's now Lean Six Sigma. And so those projects, I can go on, and there's, you know, toll gates and different steps and things that way that we don't have enough time to get into for this presentation. But it is all data driven, and that is the key, is reducing those wastes in your business. You've got to have the data so you can make timely decisions and make changes quickly Like I said, with the paper, I'd let my production logs stack up for 4 to 6 weeks and then go, and I'm like, wow, we really have a problem that I could have identified 6 weeks ago if I'd stayed on top of this, but I didn't, because I'm working so many other things in my business. And so that's what I love about Production Tracker, is it's all real time. I can look at within 24 hours, I can look at the data and see what's going on and make decisions that then impact the business in a positive way. So,
Okay, great. So what's this slide about, Allie?
yeah, so this slide is really the customized nature of both of these softwares that I love. When we did the integration, we made a couple changes. If you're a Printavo user, you can create your own statuses, and you can get really granular in what you have on your invoices and quotes. So with Udit's help, we created this production status, which you can't really see here, but it basically says it's ready for production. And that is the trigger that sends all the information from Printavo over to Production Trackers into the job details. So here you see directly what is sent over. I have my invoice number comes directly over. I have, this is the blown up of this, where we've got full front or full back. So it automatically knows to split these into 2 runs for production. So we've got the full back print here, we have the full front here, and then it takes the total number of pieces, the total quantity. And I know this mismatched because it was an entry error by my press operator, but it does take the accurate number from the total quantity and populates it here. So when your operator is on press, they're not spending a bunch of time writing things out or entering job details. This is already populated. So they go to the screen. I maybe should have done a screenshot, and maybe Udit can show us when I'm done, but they go to the tracker and they pull it up by the job number, and all of this information's here, and they just start setup, and it starts timing the setup. So it's a push of a button because these two systems sync up really well. So let's talk a little bit about data basics. I know, Marshall, I promised I wouldn't get too deep. In data collection, you have sample data and you have population data. Sample data is a quick snapshot of time, and you need at least 30 pieces of data to have a good analysis, but it's a sample of the population. So you could gather data every day for a week, or you could gather data at a specific time every day for 30 days. And that would give you a snapshot or a sample of what your shop is doing. And that data is good if you don't have the time or you don't have the staffing to do constant continuous tracking. But it does have its flaws, versus population data is gathering all of the data all of the time. So it's your entire population of what's going on in your shop. So Production Tracker very easily goes on tablets. And so for us, every employee that is in production in my shop has a tablet. We're able to get it onto Amazon Fire tablets, which you can get for $50 through Amazon. And this way it wasn't terribly expensive. I have 14 employees, and of those 14 employees, 11 of them are work in production. So they each have their own tablet. They have a login, they can go on, and whatever they're doing, whatever production line they're on, or screen, if they're in reclaim in the screen room or wherever they're at, they have their tablet with them and they can record what they're doing. So we get complete population data to drive our numbers. Now, from that data, we can do exports, we can look at the dashboard in Production Tracker and all of this, and we can see, I can calculate our mean and our standard deviation. Now, part of what Six Sigma is, it's your classic bell curve. It is 3 standard deviations either side of your average, your mean. which then means 96% of your data should fall within that bell curve, right? So we were all graded on the curve in school, maybe. So if you're looking at your data and you have that 6 sigma, 3 standard deviations to either side of the average, 96% of your data should fall within that bell curve. And if it doesn't, then you've got some outliers. And if a lot of your data starts falling outside of that bell curve, you've got a problem. So that's setting kind of your upper and lower control limits and being able to identify very quickly within a 24-hour period if you've got a problem on a piece of equipment with a specific employee or a process. The other thing in data collection is spotting trends. So if you've done any real statistic analysis, any lines, any data points that are 7 consecutive data points trending up or trending down is a trend. So 7 data points in a line identifies a trend. If that's trending up, maybe you're trending up that you're consistently producing more imprints per hour. Well, that's a great trend. My team's getting faster. We're able to produce more. I might be able to bump production up a little bit. Or the opposite is trending down. For some reason, we're doing fewer imprints per hour. And I've got 7 in a row. Well, all right, what's going on? Is it a new operator? Is it something going on with our equipment? It helps me very quickly see that there's either a positive or a negative that I need to address. And ideally, you have 7+ data points that are flat, and then you have a stable process.
Okay, some questions here, Allie. Are you using the power scheduler?
I am not at this time.
Okay.
So,
And I believe, Udit, that if we needed to sync Printavo power scheduler up, do we have anybody that's doing that right now? Do you know?
No, not really, because we're pulling in the data from the orders right now. I mean, like, with the APIs, but I mean, like, so that's what's happening. It's not coming from Power Scheduler, but it's coming from the APIs of the orders, right? So as soon as so when you actually change the status of that order to ready for production or something, it automatically pulls that particular order into the production tracker for tracking. So that's how it works right now.
Okay. And the other question was for you, Allie, was about your Fire tablet. Are you using a 7-inch one or bigger? They're concerned that the 7-inch one isn't big enough.
no, I'm using the 7-inch one, and it's plenty big.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right. So let's keep moving forward.
All right. So this is what the dashboard on Production Tracker looks like. The orange line here is targets that I'm able to set up myself in the dashboard. So I have a brand new press operator. And so, some of these targets were meeting, some of them were not. But in particular, I can see that our average setup time per screen consistently does not meet my target. My target is 5 minutes per screen. So this tells me, I may need to go out and either get him more training. I may need to observe how he's doing setup. So maybe I can identify some problems, or I need to see if there's excess processing going on that we can rectify and fix. But then if you look at our uptime, the percentage of time that our press is up and operating, it's hitting my target. If we're looking at misprints, other than one day, we are way below our target for misprints. And then impressions per hour, this one's kind of interesting because you're like, oh, he's working really slow and we need to go in and figure out how to speed up his work. Or we're not running our press to capacity. What's going on with sales? Why are we not doing that and look at the production that way. So this is one click of the button. I come into Production Tracker, I hit my dashboard, and I can look at it by process. I can look at it by embroidery, silk screen, whatever that process is. And I get really quick, at a glance, rich data that is live, timely, and I can start looking at things, and I can see, like I said, those sevens, this is a very stable, we've got a dip, but this is a very stable line. This is not. And so we can start deciding, okay, what's the most important aspect for us to tackle first? Go do some observation, talk to the operator, see if there's something maybe they need a piece of equipment that they've been missing, or things that way. But it's a very quick way then to dive into and start troubleshooting.
Yeah, and this is great. Hold on, stay on that slide, Allie.
I don't know how to go back.
Go use the up arrow key on your. There you go. So I think if you're watching this, Allie just has one press. So if you have multiple presses, green is for Dwayne. You could also call that press one. Everything that Production Tracker does is customized to you. So you could have Dwayne or Bill or Steve or press one, press two, press three. And if you had multiple pieces of equipment, it would show those in comparison. So maybe you could see Dwayne here is doing whatever Dwayne's doing, but Steve or press two, they may be better or worse or whatever. And you can instantly compare what people are doing. Also, you should note, if you see for each of these graphs, you see Y, Q, M. If you click those buttons, it filters the information for yearly, quarterly, and monthly. So you can instantly review what's going on. Now here, this is just a slide, so Allie obviously can't do that, but this is how you can see the longer you're using Production Tracker. So imagine Allie's already mentioned that, she has a new production printer that's just learning how to do stuff. So 6 months down the line, you should see this graph getting better, right? This is how you're able to track improvements. This is how you're able to see those anomalies, or how you can visualize exactly what's going on your production floor, because you've got the real data and it's instantly graphic. So I know shops that have this on a flat screen TV on the wall of their shop, so people walking by can see what's going on. And of course, these are the KPIs that Allie's interested in. And the guys with Udit's team will build you custom KPIs based on what you're interested in. And I think Allie is going to share her experience with that, because she's always wanting something different and new. So, I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, but Udit and Grid are phenomenally responsive. In fact, I was on a call with Udit yesterday, and I'm like, and this and this and this. He's like, you want these for the presentation tomorrow? And I'm like, well, just this one. The rest we can do after. But and he did. It was done, and it's accurate, and I can't say enough good things.
Okay.
All right. So some custom things. I know that Production Tracker has their standard. This is what every shop should be tracking, and all that. Oh, but one thing, Marshall, I got to go back. You know why the press's name is Dwayne, right?
No.
Because it's a rock.
Oh.
Dwayne the Rock. Okay.
Right. Well, what is the Rock cooking today, Allie?
Today the Rock was cooking something rotten. It's a local high school play that's being put on.
That's great.
All right. So things that we do in our shop that we have specifically seen an impact on using Production Tracker. Obviously, production. We're able to track the numbers. Everybody's able to see it. And numbers motivate. Now, I don't hold these numbers over staff members' heads and things that way, but as a team, we can set goals and we can work towards those goals. And having those numbers that they can see, what gets measured gets done. When it's measured and they can see it, it motivates staff. Pricing. You know, we all go, okay, how are we going to calculate prices? Well, we think we can do this many impressions, or the last time we measured, we were doing this many impressions, and this is my overhead costs. And these are my labor costs, but are they fluctuating? Has production gone up or down? Have your people gotten faster or slower since the last time you did production tracking? And is that impacting your profit margin? You know, I always refer to the production machines as our ATMs. If they're not moving, we're not making money. And so, you know, on the embroidery machines, if that needle's not going up and down, we're not making money. If the press isn't spinning, we're not making money. And so tracking the production and seeing that absolutely impacts how we're going to set pricing.
Right. What do you call the time monster? What do you call that?
Chasing the money monster.
The money monster. That's right.
The money monster. Yes. Yep. Training. On those dashboards, you can filter by employee or by operator. You can filter by shift. So I do only have one press, but when we get busy, we put on a swing shift. So then we can look at our totals and look at what we're doing all together, but then we can also look at it by shift. Is our swing shift producing more or less? Do we need to balance the production? And are they doing more or less because there isn't as much work to do for the swing shift, or because they're operating slower or more quickly? How do we balance, you know, and even using Printavo's power scheduler, how do we balance then those jobs and schedule them out? And this just gives us a really granular look. JIT or Kanban ordering. This is something that Udit and I are working on within Production Tracker. We're doing a consumable reorder module. JIT stands for just in time, which means supplies are ordered and arrive just in time for production and not before. We don't have, you know, tons of ink or chemicals that might degrade or expire sitting on a shelf, so that we have them there because we might need them. We're able to look at jobs that are coming up. We're able to use a Printavo, look at our upcoming jobs, look at what we have, and then order our consumables just in time. The other thing that we're doing is we're tracking the number of screens that we're reclaiming, but specifically for use in our dip tank, and how often are we changing out the chemicals in our dip tank, because then we don't need to have a bunch of chemicals sitting on a shelf taking up precious shop space. I'm just outside of DC. Square footage is very expensive. I don't want to be having a storage area for a bunch of chemicals. So I can look at it and go, okay, we now know that we do X number of screens through the dip tank before we need to change the chemicals. Now that I know that number going forward, I can set it so when we get close to that, it's time to order chemicals to switch out the dip tank. Instead of my reclaim guy coming to me saying, yeah, we probably should have changed these a couple of weeks ago. It's taken me 3 times to reclaim screens because the dip tank needs to be changed, or, you know, whatever that is.
Yeah. And you probably can get to a cost per screen unit and just see what your cost is, because you're actually measuring your chemical usage or your emulsion usage or whatever it is. And then how many screens did you use with your expenditure?
Exactly, which then turns around and feeds right back into pricing, right? Yep. So, and then the other thing that we have with the ordering module is, like I said, every person in production has a tablet assigned to them. It's in their hands. So now all of a sudden they identify something that needs to be reordered. They don't have to stop what they're doing, interrupt it, come tell me or tell procurement that they need an item. They can literally put it in on their tablet. We have a database with all of our consumable items in it. So it's a drop down. They say, we need spray adhesive. They hit submit. It automatically sends procurement an email saying, Braden requested that we order more spray adhesive. Not only that, then in the database, it shows when we order this item, we normally order it 3 cases at a time. The last time we ordered it was on this date, and this is what we paid for it. And that way we can watch our costs to see if they're going up or down, again, affecting what we want to do with our pricing. We can see if we're consuming that product faster. If we're consuming it faster, does it correlate with the amount of production we're doing? Or now, you know, are we wasting chemicals? We have a new person reclaiming screens, let's say, and we're using this methodology for reclaiming screens. And hey, it used to be that we were ordering haze remover, pick your chemical, you know, once every 3 months. Now all of a sudden we're ordering it once every 3 weeks. What's going on? You know, that kind of thing. So that ordering module has been, it's been interesting to look at it and develop it and be like, okay, what information is important, what's not, what's overkill, and things that way. But it's really making it so we're able to, like I said, order stuff just in time. It's not gathering dust. It's not, we're not overproducing or have, you know, that excess. And again, that reduces our wastes, improves our profit margin. We make more money. That's, you know, we are in business. We're not a charity. So that is the name of the game.
And remember how I started the webinar is you can't manage what you don't measure. So here's a perfect example of Allie asking the team at Production Tracker, hey, I'm interested in building this, and they're partnering together to solve the problem. And I think that, and Allie would probably attest to how responsive they are about doing stuff like that. We're like, I'm not sure how to build it. How do we do it? And then they'll just go, oh, it's easy. This is, and we'll have it to you soon, right? And so they're pretty good about that. Don't you think, Allie?
Oh, absolutely. I think, you know, I don't want to set expectations. Udit will cringe. I don't want to set expectations wrong, but I will say, you know, if there's something pretty easy that I want added or changed, it's 24 to 48 hours. If it's a big build, we will have a Zoom conversation about what we wanted to look at. He'll like, okay, let me get with my team. Let's see the best way to do this. And usually within a week, I'll have a first iteration of what that module could look like. And then always when I get into it, I'm like, ooh, okay, that's not working quite the way I imagined it. Can we make these changes? And then immediately, very responsive. So I really can't say enough good things. And then maintenance. We're working on a maintenance module right now that's twofold. One is to track maintenance, to make sure maintenance is being done when it's supposed to be done on the machine. So it'll set up a reminder. We haven't touched on it much, but there are notifications that you can build into Production Tracker that will send an email based on a date or based on other parameters that you can set. So I can have, you know, an email go out to my embroidery tech that says, you know, hey, next week or in 2 weeks, it'll be time to do our 6-month heavy maintenance on our 6-head embroidery machine. Well, we need to schedule that into production because that maintenance takes more than 5 minutes. It's not, you know, it's not a 4-hour oiling of a bobbin case. So it takes a longer time to do it. So we need to make sure that we've built that into production and scheduled it and know that, but it's also reminding them a week or two, whatever we want to set that parameter out so that we've got the time to build it into the production schedule. And then also, okay, do we need any supplies? Do we have the grease on hand that we need to do that maintenance? So we can plan for it. And it's not the, oh, I just flipped the calendar page and, ooh, we're supposed to do heavy maintenance tomorrow. Yeah, there's no way we can do that tomorrow. We got to wait, kind of thing. And then in our embroidery tracker right now, when we have a problem, we're able to identify which head of embroidery the problem is on. So that's something also that I can look at and go, oh, look at this. Head 6 is chronically now having this problem. And we can address it and fix it. Versus if I'm not over there, a lot of times our embroidery operator, she might come to me and said, hey, head 6 is giving me grief. Well, what's it doing? Well, sometimes it's doing this, sometimes it's doing that. And it's not real specific. And the data to support exactly what's going on. So machine maintenance, logging that the maintenance is done, scheduling when it's going to be done, and then also identifying problems as they come up. All right, so this is almost embarrassing. I'm going to embarrass myself with this case study here. And so this is one of the things that was eye-opening to me when we started doing some tracking. I wanted to identify rework. How much was rework costing us? Now, we run an automatic press, so there's the setup time and all of this, plus I have the new press operator. So we created a status in Printavo that is rework, and it's by process. So I cut it off in this, unfortunately, I cut the status off in this clip that I took, but right up here, it would say, rework for silkscreen press. And we had to reprint 3 shirts. Now, our total blank cost on those 3 shirts was $20.58. And in the past, we have always tracked the cost of reworking blanks, but we did not have a good way of specifically tying that rework to production tracking, because we, even when we were using paper logs, we weren't identifying invoice numbers and things this way. But as I showed you earlier, we're able to now tie in the job number, the number of pieces that were printed, the setup time, the production time, all of that. So we had to reprint these 3 jobs because we promised this customer, these are actual jerseys that we had to put numbers on the back of as well. So we had to have a precise production run. We couldn't do an over under. So when I went in and I looked at just this one job, not rework as a whole, but this one job to reprint these 3 jerseys, I don't know what happened this day, but it took an hour and 15 minutes to set this job up on the press. And then it took 3 minutes of production time for a total production cost of $45 with a blank cost of $20. So to reprint 3 shirts, it cost us $66.53, which goes to those 8 deadly wastes of defects and things that way. But had you asked me before I looked at this, how much it cost us to rerun this job, I would have been like, well, $20 for the blanks, maybe $10 in time for the shop. Yeah, maybe $30. And it would have been a gut instinct. And this actually cost us double that to rerun. And that was eye-opening to my staff as well. So it identified several things. One, we've got a problem with setup. This was a 2-color job. I do now, because I went and talked to my press operator. I'm like, well, what happened? Well, when they took the job down, they didn't take care of the screens, and the screens were all clogged up, and he set it up and he tried to run it, and then he had to take them down and rinse out screens, and so it took much longer than it should have. And And so, you know, we talked about that, did a little training on that, help improve that in the future.
And Allie, is your production cost based on your employees' hourly rates? How are you? What is the money factor in that?
Yep. So it is I know the hourly rate to run my shop. It's my overhead. So everything, lease, electric, all of that gets bundled in. And then my costs for those production workers on that line. And then the blank costs.
Oh, I see.
So total production time, or my cost for that production line multiplied by the time plus the blank cost.
Right. And so by you doing this, it really alerts you to, hey, there's a problem. Now you have the specific costs. You can do your investigation. And so this is how you prevent this problem from happening again, because obviously the majority of this cost was in the setup time. So how are we taking care of our screens, you know, post-production? You can do the work to prevent this kind of challenge from happening again, because you now have a conversation starter.
Exactly. Exactly. Not only that, I can take this, so you can see the work order that when we create the Printavo invoice, you see the work order that the original work order that this job was, and we can look at now what our actual profit margin was on that total job, because we have a very precise amount of cost for the rework. We know what and we can look at what it cost us time-wise, production-wise in the tracker for the original job. We can see the original invoice for what we charged the customer, and then we get very precise by job profit margins. And of course, we can do that on the larger scheme to see what our overall profit margin is. But depending on where you want to go with your data, and I admitted in the beginning, I'm a data geek, so I can look at this all the way down to the specific job level, or I can look at it by the operator, or I can look at it by the process, or I can look at it by shift. And then in doing that, if I go that deep and I spend that amount of time doing the analysis, I can say, hey, look, this operator on this process, on this shift has the highest profit margin. Let's go copy what they're doing and train everybody and have them side by side with people. And oh, by the way, if it's a specific process, let's say it's laser engraving. All right, I'm going to my sales team and saying, guess what? Every job you sell, I want an upsell of something done on the laser.
Yeah, I think what's really impactful here is the fact that this is all just done with filters, because you're tracking the information anyway, and it's just how you filter it is how that custom makes this view. And I can't remember, did you do a graph on this, or was just this the only slide?
I just did this slide.
So you could graph that, like screen printing in general, for errors or whatever, right? And
yep.
And then you can show that over a week or over a month or over a quarter or over a year or whatever. And then where does the squiggle go? Is the squiggle going up, squiggle going down, squiggle staying the same? That really tells you, are you improving? And as our friend and mentor, Mark Coudray, is always famous for saying, you know, there's only 3 possibilities of what's going to happen, right? And only one of them is good. Things are going to get better, things are going to stay the same, or things are going to get worse. And this is how you know things are getting better or not.
Exactly. And like I said, when I started this, I said the beautiful thing about both Printavo and Production Tracker is how customizable it is. So the only way this works is not only with getting all of the production data from Production Tracker, but in Printavo, I'm able to set up those statuses. So we have a status: rework silkscreen, rework laser, rework embroidery, and that again allows us to get to that level. So if neither of these systems were as customizable as they are, we wouldn't be able to get this data. But with having both of them being able to be so unique to your specific business, your production tracker is going to look different than mine. Your Printavo is going to look different from mine. You're going to have different problems. You're going to have different solutions. You're going to have different ways to approach it, because I'm sure our brains don't work exactly the same. But at the end of the day, both systems are able to accommodate that.
So Bruce, I'm curious as to your take on that, or how Allie's using that to customize things for her shop using your platform.
I think it's really powerful, you know. Obviously, there's a good question on the Power Scheduler, where you'll, see there's a little overlap with being able to assign equipment to people, but there's a lot of powerful data that's coming out of this to reduce the waste, which is time, most of the time here. And that, as somebody wrote here, is just being able to make more money on each job is like really, really powerful. And so we're never going to have everything in Printavo. So to be able to help people to integrate these two is awesome. Actually, Eric wrote a really good, and hi Eric, hope you're doing good. Eric uses Shopworks and had a good question about integration there. And I know they're working on it. And then the #1 metric that you show in the team. And I'm also curious with this too, like how to not overwhelm the team with like information they need to input, because I have heard the flip side of, well, people just don't do it. But like, how do you work through that?
Yeah, so I'll unpack that, because there's about 3 different things there. So one of the things with my employees, there's different data, whether I'm doing it in a staff meeting where it's all employees, or I'm doing it in a one-to-one with one employee. At a staff meeting level, I never get into the data of a specific individual, because they may be embarrassed either way, even if it is to praise them because their production's out of sight. Some people don't enjoy public praise. It's embarrassing to them. So at a staff level, at an all staff level, we always do it by production line. So it's a conglomeration of everybody's work that on that line. On a one-to-one, I will certainly, I kind of do the sandwich where I'll show them a great metric that they're doing that is great, and we may use to train other staff members. I'll give them a metric that I'd like them to work on or set a goal to improve. And it depends on that employee. Maybe they have a higher error rate, so that's the one I'm going to work with them on. Maybe they're slower at setup, so that's the one I want them to work on. I'll take that to their level, and then I'll find another metrics that they're doing great, and I'll make that sandwich. And then I'm looking at the chat. Oh, the tracking. So to Bruce's question about overwhelming, that's the one thing I like about the interface is you pull up the job ID and it loads everything. It's already got the location, it's got the quantity, it's got all of that because it's pulled it over from Printavo. So all they're doing to begin is pressing a button to start setup. And then when they're done with the setup and they're ready to run production, they hit end setup, start production. And then if there's a problem, then there's a button to hit problem, and they identify what the problem is. And that's just a click to identify the problem. They're predefined. And then they restart production, and then they finish production. And when they finish production, they just input the number of misprints and number of defects. And those are defined. A misprint is a press or operator error. A defect is, oh, they're getting through their pile of shirts and they find a shirt that the distributor sent that's got a hole in it. That's how those are differentiated. And so it's most every action that the operator's taking is one press of a button. And very quickly we have, losing my words now.
Well, let me take
We
over
have
for you, Allie.
we have holders on the press that hold the tablets, so it's right there by the controller that they just click.
Yeah, so Udit will tell you that I've worked with them and we test everything. And what am I always saying, Udit? It needs to be simpler. It needs to be one button. It needs to have one click. These people were in production. They don't have time to like choose three things. Let's just make it really incredibly obvious about what the next step is. And then that's the only thing they can see.
That's
right?
correct. Yeah.
And they've done a really fantastic job of doing that. And we're always looking for feedback, and anything that we can make it easier to use, we're happy to build that out, because we want people to use it. We want it to stick, and it has to be a habit, and it has to be easy to use. And the fact that you can use a tablet, you can use your phone, you can use an iPad, you can use whatever. It makes it really easy. I was just at a shop in Texas that uses Production Tracker, and just like Allie, they've got a mount that's on their press. And I was filming and watching the press operator just click through, and it was just part of his thing. And he wasn't even thinking about it anymore. It's so easy. So
Yeah, and Eric, to your question, so before Printavo integration, and also we actually use two systems. This is why we don't, right now, we're not using the Power Scheduler in Printavo. I think it's a
you froze up, Allie.
Printavo for bulk ordering. And so, we have two systems for managing our orders. We use Inksoft for our online stores, and we use Printavo for our bulk orders. Inksoft is not yet integrated. So my operators, but they're working on it. My operators manually enter those. And so even then, you as the business owner, when you do the setup, like print locations are predefined, problems are predefined, all of those. So I would say it takes less than 15 seconds for my employees to enter a job if it's not manually, or if it's not automatically brought over. And so they just put in the ID, the print location, and a quick like 2-word description and the number of impressions. And then they just start tracking.
Okay, so we're at an hour mark, so I think it's time to wrap up real quick here. I'm sure we could be talking about this all day. I know I can. I know Allie can. This is what we live for, is data and metrics and stuff. So Bruce, why don't you just give us your kind of overall view on it, and then we'll go to you, Udit. Allie, you get the last word, and then we'll close up.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. Give it a trial. Maybe you could post a link down in the description. People can, or in the comments, and people can give it a go, start setting it up, and start connecting things. Eric had a last question there. Yeah, I mean, Shopworks is it's an older platform, so you'll have to do the best as possible, but this is awesome. Really, really excited to be able to see it. The charts, the data, I was sending screenshots actually over to our team. So very cool. Very excited to see where this goes.
Thanks, Bruce. Udit?
Thanks, Ali, firstly, for talking about everything that we've been doing. And with Production Tracker, of course, Printavo integrations has been amazing, because I mean, it was so easy to integrate with all the APIs that are available at Printavo. But with Production Tracker, what we're trying to do is bring the concept of no code to the industry, which means just like Ali was mentioning, you can build applications with drag and drop interface. So what we'll do is probably have a universe of applications coming up on the Production Tracker, so that we're solving all these problems that Ali was talking about. But it's been great knowing the industry. I mean, when we spoke to Marshall, that was our first time understanding about the industry, and it's really interesting to solve the problem here.
Great. And Allie?
Yeah, I would say absolutely give it a try. It is a game changer. If people have questions or want more specifics about what we are doing, I'll drop my email address in, and you are welcome to contact me around my shop, or using it if you want. or answer any questions. So.
Okay, great. And so thanks everyone for joining us today. We have a lot of really exciting things going on with Production Tracker. I know people that are tracking their screen room, their art department, their sales. There's a CRM tool that we're kind of playing around with. We're also playing with different ways that we can graph things instead of like a squiggle graph, doing a strip graph. There's a lot of stuff that's coming. And it's so exciting. Sometimes I think we don't know what to work on next, frankly. But our goal is to help you visualize your data so you can make better decisions in your shop. So Udit, real quick, if somebody wants to sign up for a free demo, where should they go?
So we're available at workongrid.com/production tracker. I think Ayush, just put up the link in the chat. So that's where it is. And we're going to send, to everyone who's attended, we'll send up the sign up link. And thank you so much, Bruce, for joining us today it's been lovely integrating with Printavo.
Awesome. All right. Hey, thanks everyone.